Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to Don't Do Stupid Shit to Your Body on Om Times Radio with inventor, author, engineer, and rebel Gail Lynn. Gail has over 3 decades of solving her own health mysteries and then helping thousands of others find a better quality of life through sound, light, frequency, and vibration. She has witnessed countless stories of people harming themselves, some resulting in death, just because they didn't know any better. Her hope is to educate people to be more discerning and critically think about the sources of information being researched, as well as products and modalities being used to determine if or how they are biased and misleading. Don't Do Stupid Shit is inspiring, honest, authentic, and unapologetic. Listen now to laugh and learn from Gail Lynn and her guests as they discuss how to be more discerning with healers, energy modalities, what you put into your body, and, most importantly, to listen to your body. Here is your host, Gail Lynn.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. As you know, we have to tell Chris a couple jokes before we get started. Otherwise, he just doesn't have any fun. So what size pizza is the most spiritual? A medium. I know, right? Okay, next one. I always wait for Chris's response. Next one, well, this is kind of a true story too. My ex told me that his spirit animal was a tiger, but it was actually a cheetah.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, growing, right? Okay,
grown.
yeah. Anyway, you guys, I want to introduce you to Paige. Oh my gosh, we met. I looked at the emails, Paige. We met June of 2020 when you sent me an email wanting to buy a harmonic egg for Canada.
Wow.
And so now it's been 3 years. Paige has become a sister, a friend, a colleague. She has the best fairy energy in the world. She's level-headed. She's on a journey just like we all are, myself included, to try to figure out what the hell is going on, right? And so she's a super gifted musician, and she's actually created music for the egg, and she will be creating more. And I think to date, you've sold almost 40 eggs in Canada. That's kind of just off the top of my head. So welcome, Paige. Thanks for being here.
Yay. Thank you, Gail, so much. Thanks, Chris. I see him in the chat as well.
I know. Chris is like our little backseat driver, right?
Yeah, little cheerleader in the back. Love that. Thank you.
So we want to talk about spiritual delusion because you and I had a conversation a few weeks ago, and I said, you know what? We need to educate people. We need to talk to people. We need to let some people know that they're not crazy, and then let some people know that maybe they are being a little crazy, right? So I looked up the definition of empathy, and I want to start with this. It's the ability to understand and share feelings of another. And it's not a woe is me thing, like, oh, I'm such an empath and I take on everybody's energy. Like you said, it's a freaking superpower.
Yeah, it really is a superpower. And I think it became sort of a tagline or a popular trend to call yourself an empath. Because people finally had a word to describe how sensitive they were to other people's feelings, which in itself is amazing because these kind of words help discover our other senses. We start talking about these other, ways that we communicate in the world. So that's fantastic. But it also came with a culture of people sort of stuck with knowing this information and not knowing what to do with it or how to process it. And then worse, almost holding it like, oh God, I can't go to the party because I'm an empath and I'll just shut down. It's like, oh no, well, we don't want that. You have to live your life. You have to, maybe take a look at why you're an empath, and why you're so sensitive to these energies. And then how can you work on that and where that came from? And then how can you use that superpower to really be to your advantage and to really tap in with with humans and make deep connections with people, but know how to protect yourself as well.
Right, right. And, I was at a summit this last Saturday, and there was a gentleman that tried the lift, our home unit, and he said he saw his pain level go from a 10 to a 5 in his left hip just by being in there for 5 minutes. And I was hearing rumblings about this from the people that were running the booth. And then I went out to get some lunch, and I came back in, and he said, "Hey, I tried your device and my pain level." So I met him. And of course, you know me, what's going on? And he said, "My left hip," and he could hardly walk. And I feel like I'm an empath, but I use it as a superpower. And I do clear myself after, usually it's in the shower at night. I clear myself. But I said, "Left hip, what's going on with your sister, your mom, a female partner?" And he looked at me. I'm not psychic. We know, you and I, all the training we've had, we can tune into people's bodies because they don't listen to their body, but we know the messages from the body.
Yeah.
So he all of a sudden started crying, and he said, real tall guy, real handsome guy, and starts crying. And I don't know what to do with this, right? So I hug him, and he says, "My 92-year-old mom passed away, and my sister wrote us out of the will. So my brother and I didn't get anything. She kind of did this on the down low." And I said, "So you're giving your sister all that power so you can't walk anymore?"
Yeah.
And he was like, face palm, right?
Yeah.
And it was just this light bulb went off, and he almost felt silly that he didn't even see it himself.
Yeah. And that's a perfect example of, you have this research and this knowledge, but it's also a feeling too. I think when people are empathetic, I'll often have people come into my egg center, and I run a wellness center with 2 harmonic eggs in Niagara Falls. I'll have people, and they'll come in, and I'm an empath, and I pick up too many energies, and they'll complain about it a little bit, which I understand because it's hard to clear it if you haven't done that practice. But the thing that I go to is I say, "How did you grow up? How is your household? How did your parents yell a lot? Did your parents get divorced at a young age? Did they argue? Was there abuse potentially?" And I love the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, a fellow Canadian, amazing work. I love his most recent book, The Myth of Normal, where, a lot of these children who experienced that became empaths because of the hypervigilance that they were able to tune into as a child. So, me, I'm a child of divorce at a very young age. I think I was 9 when they divorced. I was very good at being quiet and calm because I didn't want to be the disruptor in the room. I wanted everything to be easy peasy and let them have the emotional space, right? So what did that, what coping mechanisms did I pick up from that experience? And one of them is the empath ability, where you walk into a room and you almost identify with the person who's the most hurt or the most dangerous or whatever that may be. And therefore, you're more affected by potentially the negativity in the room rather than the positivity, because it's almost a nervous system issue, which we talk about a lot with the harmonic egg and resetting your autonomic nervous system. It's a very chronic and subtle form of fight or flight, right? Constantly sensing the room, what's going on. So when we can calm our nervous system and when we can consciously decide, this is not my energy, I don't need to walk into the room with it, I'm going to actually bring light into the room and bring protection into the room, you can start to let go of those coping mechanisms that served you well as a child, but as an adult, you strictly don't need them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, no, great points. Because who hasn't had a traumatic childhood or dysfunctional families? I mean, that is just normal, right? I had one lady in my whole life said her childhood was perfect. And I don't even know if she's delusional, right? Maybe she's the delusional one. But it's nice that she really thought that her childhood was perfect. But I mean, tens of thousands of people that I've met, and one person said their childhood was just perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I hear people where they're like, oh, I loved high school. And it's like this jealousy comes up in me. I'm like, what? You liked that? Okay. I'm so far removed from what that feels like, but good for you. God bless.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the
Yeah.
thing. People don't, they want to, we see all these friends on Facebook and you get to see the best of everybody because you're not going to go on Facebook and say, I'm a hot mess and I'm delusional and I'm jealous or I'm angry. You don't say that. So they get to see the best of everybody. But when I did my talk the other day too, I said, I did a body code session only to find out that I was broadcasting hate me and don't respect me. And I thought, where did that come from? 14 to 16 years old. And I did not enjoy high school. I was not somebody that was popular. I was the athletic person that hung around with the burnouts or the druggies. So people are like, are you a druggie or are you a jock? Why do I have to be one or the other? Why can't I have friends that are the athletes and the druggies and not do drugs and play sports?
Yeah.
I was always the odd person.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. Just art geeks, musicians, did, volleyball, always trying to find that clique and never quite belonging. I always felt too that I was older than I was for a very long time until I was maybe in my 20s did I catch up to where I felt like my brain was. And I think that comes with trauma too, is you grow up quickly. You have adult themes in your life at a very young age, and the people that get to savor their childhood, which I think is what's so under attack these days, is children's wildhood or their childhood, of allowing that innocence to stay, as long as possible. I think it's what parents really try to protect, and it's constantly being invaded. So I think, yeah, when there's trauma there, you just have these adult themes at a very young age. So you kind of grow up too quickly, and
Yeah.
you kind of lose that gap between, being a teenager and a young girl. But I love the thing that I love about the way the universe is designed, the way that God designed it, is when we're children, and we're maybe, I think it's age 1 to 5, 1 to 6, we have no rational emotional discernment. It is not programmed in our brain. So the Healing Codes was one of the first books that you turned me onto when I first so I signed up to get my harmonic egg. And they were talking about how this woman was self-sabotaging herself and growing up, and she could never find success. She was super smart, but all of her businesses, she couldn't find success. And they traced it back to when she was a little kid. Her sister got a popsicle, but she didn't get a popsicle. And when you are a child with no rational emotional processing, all you feel is, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve it. Why did someone else get something and I didn't? Meanwhile, the mom was just, you didn't eat your dinner. You shouldn't have a popsicle, just being a good mom. But the child, thinks of it that way. And when I look, and I love doing this, I call it the bird's eye view. When you take yourself out and look at the bird's eye view of the design of that, of the perfect geometry of that, right? The sacred geometry of that, is that even if you have perfect parents, even if you have a perfect background of where you come from, there's no escaping perceived trauma because we go through those years without being able to rationalize these emotions. So everyone will get these building blocks, and everyone will get these lessons as a soul that they're going to have to work through. So it's gorgeous in its design, as it is unavoidable because it helps our soul evolve.
Yeah. Well, remember the story I told about the little girl that was allergic to apples, and they narrowed it down to when she was eating an apple, she saw her cat get hit by a car. And in her brain is like, apples are bad for the rest of her life until she became an adult with rational thinking. Yeah. She was no longer allergic to apples once she put that. Our minds are so powerful, right?
So powerful.
So let's talk about the spiritual delusion and what we've seen with our clients and our colleagues with that.
Yeah, I think, a big pattern that I see working with the clients, and we're in our second year now, is a lot of diverting away from the shadow work. I think there's a lot to be said about, we talk a lot about the process of ascension versus, just grounding. And everybody wants to ascend and they want their crown chakra blown wide open and they want all of their amazing gifts, which is beautiful. And you have them, you all have these gifts and they're sacred and important. But you need to learn how to ground. You need to learn how to exist in the world that you are existing in and know the difference between spiritual ascension and spiritual escapism. I think there's a difference there that you have to just check in with yourself if you're actually using it as escapism. And I see it a lot in like chronic positivity. It's all good. The universe will all fix it. And, I just got to think positive thoughts rather than it's okay to have negative thoughts. It's okay to have anger. These are a part of ourself that is showing us who we truly are and trying to assimilate the duality of the dark and the light that we all carry. And I think what happens along people's path, whether they're pursuing a new project or starting a new business, they'll use their spiritual, let's say, notions, and that end up causing a blockage. So an example of this would be you're starting a new business, you go to get your business cards made, and they never show up, right? Something happened in the mail, it didn't show up. And so the person goes, it's a sign. I shouldn't start this business. The universe didn't send me my business cards. No, please don't let that stop you, okay? Yes, signs are important. Validation is a beautiful gift from the universe, but alignable action to your manifestations is what will propel you on your best path that your highest self is propelling you towards. And usually these also show up, oddly enough, as your shadow work coming up, creating these obstacles because they're like, you know what, Paige, you want to open an egg center? Well, first we're going to bring up all this shadow stuff for you to deal with in the form of, your business cards not showing up, in the form of you can't find a rental space, in the form of, your close friend is showing jealousy of your new job, like whatever it is. And it's not, okay, give up and oh, the stars didn't align and, Uranus wasn't in, ascension with your plan. It's not about that stuff. It's about pushing through with kindness to yourself of, okay, how do I break this down? Why is this fear coming up of not deserving, I'm not worthy, that we deal with a lot of, what's it called? Imitation fear, or where you don't feel worthy to be helping other people, right? That happens a lot. And I think the shadow work is there to prepare you, and it will always be a part of your life. So don't spiritual bypass it. Dig into it. Kadrick Olson is a really great leader in the space of integrating your shadow self. So I totally recommend checking him out as well. And just know that the shadow is you and it deserves love and it deserves acceptance. And don't let the obstacles stop you from alignable action.
Yeah, no, it's so perfect. And so some of the notes I'm making here is, we need to express our anger. Because so many people are like, oh, everything's good, it's good. And then they've got liver cancer because they didn't express their anger. And they're like, oh, I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that. Then they have kidney cancer because they didn't express their fear. I mean, it's okay to be vulnerable. And that's what I've learned is like, I'm just going to be totally vulnerable. And as well as anybody else that I know, that I express my feelings. And then we're done. Then we move on. It's like, okay, this made me feel this way. This made me feel this way. But I'm super healthy. I ran into some people I haven't seen for about 5 or 6 years at the summit. And they're like, oh my God, you look so good. I'm like, well, I'm tired because of all the stuff. I mean, this business is growing. And you're a big part of that, of course. And so I said, I'm tired. They're like, you just look amazing. And so it's more to stay in high vibe. And when you find that you're broadcasting things like hate me, then you go figure out where it's coming from and then rebroadcast something else. If you're attracting something into your life that you don't like, it is no one's fault but your own because you're broadcasting that to be attracted to you for learning a lesson. And let's flip the script. You didn't get your business cards. You call them up. You go, I didn't get my business cards. And then they send them to you for free.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Right? So there's the sign that you're supposed to be doing
Yeah.
it, and the universe is gifting them to
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Push that little bit further. Get your
Right. Don't
get your
quit.
hands dirty, people. Like it's not all gonna be peachy keen. It's gonna be sometimes an uphill battle and then sometimes a beautiful downhill battle, and you'll reap those rewards of putting in that alignable action. Yeah, I love that.
Like, how bad do you want it,
Yeah.
right? How bad do you
Well,
want
that's
it?
another declaration to the universe is how bad do you want it? Are you going to give up at the first, issue that comes up? No, you have to push through. And anything worth having or worth learning or worth growing is going to do that to you. Yeah.
No, I love it. And so let's talk about some of the symptoms and looking at like, okay, you talked about grounding, but having common sense and being discerning and tuning into and trusting your intuition, but also, you want to look to non-biased education. So a lot of these articles you're seeing out on the internet are under an algorithm where, they're like, oh, this is the information they want to see. But if you go and do the research, you can find the benefits of magnesium or the dangers of magnesium anywhere, just like the benefits of love, the dangers of love. You can find whatever you're looking for to satisfy your own case that you want to build. And so it makes me crazy that people are so judgmental. And what has happened in the last few years, it's like the pandemic was fear and to divide us. And we've got the Great Awakening, the Trumpers, the Vaxxers, the anti-vaxxers, the maskers, the anti-vaxxers, the QAnon people, shadow work, conspirituality, which I just learned this word from Chris a couple weeks ago. We've got Save the Children. We're confused.
Yeah. And I think anything that you need validated, you will find the validation. And I think that's what's kind of prickly and also amazing about the universe at large, about this quantum field that we're playing in, is you can dip your toe anywhere, honey. You can go the negative, you can go the positive, you can find validation for anything that you want to do. At the end of the day, the same lessons that you have to learn will present themselves. So if I didn't open my Harmonic Egg Center and I, became an auto mechanic, I would still have the same, maybe not wrapped up in the same presentation, but I would still have the same lessons come through. I think the other thing that's starting to present itself now that I'm in my 30s is I'm seeing cyclical karmic lessons where I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. And I think what I do is, as what's been helpful for me is I think about when did this happen before? And who were the players? What did they represent? How did I handle it? How did I feel? And what can I do differently that will maybe move some of those emotions forward faster or get to a resolution that feels better for the highest good of everyone sooner? And it's been helpful. It's almost like a history map for the future, right? You can tap into those timelines. But I agree. I think you can be validated either way. And it's really to think that you are not co-creating your life and that this content is just being poured in and mapping the way is not so. Really, it's up to you. You can co-create any darn thing and you can get really good at it and get really quick at it too.
Yeah. And so like people are so convinced that they're right or someone else is wrong. And those same people are convinced that those people are wrong and they're right. And so like, how do we get here? How did we get to this place where we're so judgmental of each other?
Well, I think judgment comes from something we see in others that is in ourselves that we don't like. So we see someone taking their health for granted and we judge them because we would never do that to ourselves anymore because we've, woken up or we've, become conscious of the way to treat our body. And to see someone live with so much lack of self-love hurts us. So that reflection, because that person is a reflection of me and we are a soul connected, it hurts us. And the defense mechanism, I believe, is to judge, when really we should be, looking at them with empathy. There's that empath word again, that superpower. And I always kind of like zoom. I'm such a visual person. I'm an Aquarian philosopher at heart, but I do a lot of visual things. So I like to zoom out of a visual of what's happening in a situation and kind of look at the bird's eye view and see things like that. See that they are a mirror of me. See that to judge them or to exclude them the way that they may have judged or excluded me is just as bad. Especially the spiritual community, which many people, I had a lot of people in my center come in and they were attacked, or they were, detached from their family members because all of this polarity that's been going on. And our mission was to bring them in a state of compassion, because they should look at that family member or look at that, sibling or whoever that really cut them off or hurt them, and have compassion for them, realize that their scope of their reality is not the same as theirs, and that they should be humbled that they can see this scope and see the depth of this compassion where someone else in their life cannot, and be accepting of that.
I love it. Well, we have a lot more to talk about. We're going to go to a commercial break, and then I've got all kinds of notes to recap and when we come back.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Paige.
Om Times TV. Experience light and sound in your own home with Harmonic Egg books and music. Take a deeper dive into the inner workings of the harmonic egg through Gail Lynn's book, Unlocking the Ancient Secrets to Healing. Experience Harmonic Egg's consciously created music on USB. Over 10 hours of high-frequency, high-vibration, high-energy music created with love, integrity, and intention. And The Little Dragon and the Giant Egg hardcover book makes the perfect gift for young and old, holidays, birthdays, anytime. Order these and more at harmonicegg.com. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you.
Welcome back. I like saying that. So we were just talking about, how people stand in judgment of each other because they're sure that they're right and the other person's sure that they're right. And we're talking about how, if you really want to do your dream, how bad do you want it? And just because a little, blip happened, like you didn't get your business cards to start your business, you want to just give up instead of saying, okay, well, maybe I'll call them up and then I get free business cards, and you flip the script, right? And we were just talking about what you were just saying. You were an Aquarian and I'm a Scorpion. So I tend to want to just put my stinger out, right? Instead of be more rational and, more loving. So it's a challenge for me when I see people that are doing things that I know are not good for their body. And that's not judgment. It's just because I'm listening to their body, but they're not. And I'm trying to educate them. I get that little stinger. It's like, come on, just wake up. And you're so much more loving and fairy, energy, and, coddling them along when I just want to just like, God, just get it done. Right. So just, we still love each other, but just differently. And so, I actually said that at the summit. I asked everybody to raise their hand. Who is working to create someone else's dream? And why don't you feel deserving to create your own dream? And of course, nobody raised their hand. So we've got like 600 people sitting out in the audience. And I said, how many of you are creating someone else's dream? And no one raised their hand. Yeah. 80% of those people are working for somebody else creating their dream. Yeah. And, they didn't raise their hand. So, it's just tough, when you have family members that are separated, and we've had this whole pandemic of fear. And I've gone through it with my own family, and the best thing to do is just send love. And I had to do that. I changed the entire energy with my mother when a spiritual healer told me to put a picture of my mom up and send it love. And this was when I was in my 20s, and I was like, there's no way I can do that. I really don't like my mom. Can't do it. And he said, okay, then you're going to keep relearning the same lessons with the same person. And my motivation at that time was, I want to get rid of this person for the rest of my life and all lifetimes after that, because I can't stand her. And as soon as I shifted and flipped that script from sending her all the hate and anger and sending her love, we were best friends when she passed away. We were doing mother-daughter trips. And so if everything's energy, you can flip that and just send love to people. We're all one, and we shouldn't be judgmental. So it was a huge lesson for me in how I saw everything change when I just started sending her love instead of anger and hate.
Absolutely. And it's such a profound story, because who among us, doesn't have an issue with either our parents or a relationship? In the past, I always like to allude that it's like in my 20s, gosh, I didn't know who I was. And so much of who I am finally emerged. Like I was living like as if I was a different person. And there's not a lot of people from that time that are even in my life, because they don't know me. They don't know who I am now. And that's not good or bad. It's just, it is. But what I had to do in my experience as well is sometimes, you talk about being able to do that with your mom when she was still living, and what a gift that is that you had that time. But sometimes, we don't have access to the person, so maybe they've passed, or maybe access to the person is no longer appropriate due to the nature of, let's say, a relationship ending or something. And there is a lot of work that you can still do as a soul, on a soul level, to work on things like forgiveness, letting things go. And a lot of it can be done in dreams. A lot of it you can ask when you're, on your pillow at night, that you want to connect with that person's soul and you want to find forgiveness and peace with them. You can do it in meditation, so you don't have to be sleeping. And basically you're recalling that time, you're recalling the energy exchange with them, and maybe even feeling there's that empath superpower again. Use those empath skills to tap into what they might have been feeling, maybe how you hurt them, and really just kind of feel into that, and then ask for forgiveness or give them forgiveness, because that's hard too. Give forgiveness and watch how things will shift. People that either come out of the woodwork and send you like super positive vibes of people that you wouldn't necessarily even hear from, or different opportunities open up because you've let go of that emotional baggage and you've allowed forgiveness into your heart. It's a huge tool, especially when you don't have access to these people anymore, to find a sense of peace. And then I also want to say that sometimes, even though that you have access to the person, their reality is not in a place where you can make those kind of conversations healthy. So don't feel like you have to run to your dad and tell him all of the things that he did and all the things you want validation for and all of the expectations you had of him as a father. Yes, I think on some level they should know, especially if they've hurt their children, but you might not ever get out of it what you think you will when you have those kind of conversations in person with people without that emotional scope, without that emotional heart opening ability that you maybe have as an empath. So you can still do that remotely with them and kind of work on that relationship that way.
Yeah, because you can free yourself. Maybe they don't want to be free. Maybe they don't want to fix it, but you can free yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And to what you were saying earlier about sort of the different ways that we love, right? The Aquarian and the Scorpio. I think your passion, because it's so, the stinger, but also the stinger is in your face, right? So it cuts right to the core, sometimes in the most profound way of delivering these messages that just need to resonate really strongly with people. And a lot of people, respond to that. So they're going to get the answers, from you, the space that you're holding from them, for them. And, if they're ready to come to that information and they're ready to bring it into their own life, that's great. All the better for them. But I think, your other point about this judgment and the division, all we can do is really hold space for people and hold that space of love, offer information, offer guidance if we have it. And the rest is up to them. And we can't have expectations of their success or failure, because that is completely up to them and their soul's journey. And we just hold space for the best for everything to work for them. And it's really up to them. You can get dragged down pretty quick, hoping and a wishing someone will get that blink. Oh, okay, I'm doing that wrong. Simple, right? If they're not in that conscious space, they're not. And it's not just, it's not also their fault. There's so many things in our society, in those algorithms we're talking about, the societal pressures, the myths of society, the belief systems that are repressive as well. So there's a lot of stuff that people need to work through to come to that state of consciousness. And so we just have to respect their level of awareness.
Yeah. So it reminds me of, I think it's a 60s song, wishing and hoping and wishing and hoping,
Yeah.
I'm not a singer. You already know that. But no, it's true. And I just hope that, people will hear this and say, maybe I should be less judgmental. Maybe I shouldn't think that I'm correct, and that maybe I should just respect that that other person is on a journey, and I'm going to meet them where they are, and just love them where they are. Even if they think they're correct and the other person thinks they're correct, we can still love each other, and we can both be correct or we can both be completely wrong. Right?
Yeah.
Because my friend told me in 1998, because that's when I met him, so I know this date. He said, you can only have one of the three. You can have love, health, or wealth, but you can't have all of them. You can only have two of the three. One of them you have to give up. That's what I want to say. And I thought, you son of a no, I'm gonna have them all. And that's my Scorpio nature. Don't tell me I can't do something. Yeah. So I now have wealth, health, and love all. And so, it's like, in your face, Jim, you were wrong. I have them all. So, and I tell everybody, you can have it all, and it's just about letting things flow. And I almost titled my presentation on Saturday, How I Successfully Failed. How I successfully failed. Yeah. And so how many times did I fail to be successful? Right. And that's what I wanted to talk about. But then I ended up shifting and changing it because of some influence of Elvis and the Welcome Center in Mississippi. It's a long story. But yeah, it was definitely, I've definitely failed on a lot of accounts, but all those failures added up to the success. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I was reflecting on this whole day, kind of mentally getting prepared for today's interview. I kept having the John Lennon song, The Dream Is Over, coming up for me, because it's the one where he goes, I don't believe in I Ching, I don't believe in Buddha, I don't believe in Beatles, I just believe in me. And for whatever reason, like I've loved the Beatles and John's music for so long, flawed as he is, he's so profound in his lyric writing. But today it was resonating with me on a different level that he saw the world. He stayed with the Maharishi in India. He did the primal scream. He looked to find himself and reconnect with his father when he was almost 40. And like all of these, his mom died at a very young age. All of these traumas that he had, I feel like he was seeking a lot of his life, just like George Harrison did. And in that moment, it was like, I tried all the gurus, and at the end of the day, I believe in me. And to distill it, it comes across intense in the song, like he's casting out all of these teachers, but it's not so. It's sometimes you're the teacher and sometimes you're the student. And I think in that lyric, it's like John finally realized, like, it's in him. All of the answers are within. And if we can take a look at all of this spiritual delusion, spiritual division, and just look within and realize that you are my sister and you are a mirror of me. And every time your Scorpio gets in my face, it brings up something that I have to work on, and vice versa. And we love it and we devour it. And again, we take that zoom bird's eye view of what have we signed up for here as souls. And I tell a lot of my clients who, have these spiritual, philosophies, they go, yeah, I know that, but I still feel this. And I say, okay, well, let's zoom out and just picture yourself as a soul up in the clouds. You haven't incarnated yet. You're with your mom's soul, your dad's soul, your sister, whoever, and you're all up there and you're having a powwow and you're going, okay, this time I'm going to go down there and we're going to deal with alcohol abuse, and we're going to deal with, our house having a fire when we're very young. And we're okay, sounds great. You know what? Because that's going to progress my soul here, and that's going to progress my soul here. And then next time we'll do it again, only I'll be your mother. And we have this kind of connection with these souls, and we volunteer. I think it's so important to remember that we volunteer for these lessons that we go through for our higher self and for our highest good. So even when we're feeling depression, anxiety, when we're feeling lost, when we're feeling spiritually lost, when we're feeling disconnected from God, these are all part of those building blocks to progressing the soul, which is why we're here, which is so exciting. They're just being presented with these different, masks or different setting of the stage to play out the lessons that we need to learn.
Yeah, and I think John Lennon was perfect, just as you're perfect and I'm perfect. And I think John was here to teach us all a lesson and teach us. And I think he came here and said, okay, when I come down, I'm going to learn how it is to be murdered. I really think he signed up for that. Yes. And it was his journey and his lesson and what he signed up for. And as negative as that might sound, it was the positive, because that's what he wanted to experience in this lifetime. And I used to go to every healer on every corner, looking for answers. But I'm glad you brought that up, because it's like I started to go, okay, let me just sit in silence. Let me ground. Let me center. And let me ask my body, what is it that I need to know? And then now I start to see these people who are healers, and they're not to be judgmental, but they're escaping their own problems by healing everybody else. So they've got kids who are addicted. They've got, the one I can think of is her kid's addicted to porn. And so instead of looking at in her own house, she's looking to fix everybody else, but not looking in her own house. Some of them are unhealthy, going through divorces. And it's not a good place for them to be healing when they're emotionally distraught. And so it's just unfortunate that it's their livelihood, so they have to do it. But yet they're putting those emotions into their clients. And so it's really hard for me to see that sometimes, where you're seeing these healers who are broken. They're poor. They don't love themselves. They're unhealthy, but they're healers. So that's kind of what comes up when I think of spiritual delusion. And you don't want me putting my hands on you, for sure, because I still have my own issues that I'm dealing with. And I would never want to put my energy or the things I'm working on to somebody else to let them deal with it. But a lot of times this is what the healers do. And so when you leave there and you feel angry and you feel sad, and I've left healers crying, I've left healers feeling fearful of money, and it was not my energy. But people don't know how to discern what is theirs and what isn't.
That's a great point. And I think in life in general, it is very rare that you will see someone who walks the walk, who talks the talk, right? A lot of these gurus, they talk a big game, and then you think, okay, well, then why are you having this chronic, unhappiness in your life, or why is your family unit suffering? And what are you not bringing forward in your gifts that you have to your own people, to your own family unit? And what blockages are there? And at that point is, using your gifts to help others, really that avoidance again of the shadow work within that they've got to take a look at. Because the moment that work starts to move and flow again, and not necessarily resolve itself, but at least have some movement and attention to it, it will change the people that she's attracting, who she's healing, and it will change the energy that she's bringing to that healing session as well. So it's all interconnected.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And talk about flow. Everything just flows in my world. So it's been really funny to experience it. And it's almost comical now. I was going to get lunch the other day, and they gave me the wrong sandwich. And I said, no, I ordered this and not this. And she's like, well, just take this. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with it? I actually looked up. I looked to my left, and there was somebody that I knew walking out of the door. And I said, hey, do you like this type of sandwich? He goes, I love it. I'm like, here you go. Like, what are the odds that things flow so perfectly?
Yeah.
And then we were leaving the summit, and I didn't bring like a dolly or anything. And I had a half a box of books I needed to carry. And we had talked to probably 150 people. I was exhausted. We're standing on my feet all day, and I spoke, and it was terrible. I was like, I'm so tired. And there was hardly anybody left in the building. And I thought, I just need somebody to carry this box for me. I don't even know if I can walk all the way to my car. I looked up, and there was a girl that used to be an old client of mine. And I was like, would you mind? She's like, I would absolutely love to do that for you. But just day after day, hour after hour, this is how my life flows when I just let things come to the surface and just deal with them.
Yeah, that's a huge point, is like allowing that time and that space. And, we talk about alignable action, but I want to put like a little footnote to that. And also something that, I really love. I listened to this one woman talking about procrastination. And she said, everyone's always told me my whole life that it's so bad that I'm a procrastinator. But the way that I look at it is, I know when the energy is right. I know when I've filled my cup with what I need, whether it's knowledge, energy, downloads, thoughts, like whatever, collaboration, before I take action. And I know best when to step in. So no, I'm not waiting to the last second. I'm just really allowing all of those moving parts to settle. And I know in my body when to take that leap, that action. And I really like that, because I'm a little bit of a procrastinator, but I always feel that too. It's like, it's not right today. It's not going to come out the way that I want it. And that's not to say that you should wait for inspiration to strike with everything you do, right? You got to hustle in the hustle worthy tasks. Don't wait for inspiration to strike to send an email back to someone. But when it's an important thing, and when you really need to feel right about something, there is grace in leaving space for that kind of to come into the right zone.
I love it, because I procrastinated about the presentation I had to do this last Saturday, and I knew about it for months, and it just wouldn't come through until Bill and I went on our little trip, and we went to the Welcome Center in Mississippi. And I looked up, and there's a big Elvis statue, a little cardboard cutout. And then there was the brochure. It says, one little thing can change everything. Mm. And as soon as I saw that, it clicked. And I was like, I have to tell the story about how bullfrogs are the thing that got me to sound and light therapy. Because I was looking for bullfrogs for my mother-in-law. I found Bayou Bob. He had just gone to a C-level executive conference. He told me about it. And that's when I met the guy that invented the light box.
Yeah.
So bullfrogs is the one little thing that changed everything for me.
Yeah.
But I also remember I was like, come on, Paige, we need to do that video. You're like, I can't. I'm not in the right space for it yet. I'm not in the right space for it yet. And I'm like, well, it needed to get done yesterday, Paige, and I'm a Scorpio. So get it done. And you're like, not in the right space for it yet. It'll come.
Yeah, and I think too, as women, this is maybe a bit of a sidestep, but I've been trying to use this as a new superpower, which is actually zoning in on where my cycle is. And, I can't remember the lady's name on Gaia that Regina Meredith interviewed. She talked basically about hormones and about how women are literally like 4 different people every month. Right? Because their cycle's changing, the hormones coming out, you're a little bit higher in this week, you're a little bit lower key in this week, then you got all this energy, and then you really got to like take it easy. And I've been trying to tap into that from an energetic perspective and just sort of arranging, should I be doing all this labor outside, moving all these bags of soil? No, I'm going to wait about 4 more days when this hormone is a little bit better. And it just serves me better to wait and let my body decide kind of the task. So yeah, with that video, I did not want to be on camera. I did not have ideas flowing. And then the moment I did, I just stepped into that, and then it flowed so effortlessly. So yeah, there's something to be said about positive procrastination.
Right. But like you said, you can't procrastinate on paying your taxes or anything. But
right.
but there are some things that need that creative energy to come through, and maybe it's a different part of your cycle. Maybe it's a different part of your life. Some people say, I got a book in me. Well, then maybe that book's not ready to be written until you do another chapter of your life, right? So maybe you're not procrastinating writing the book. You're waiting for that next chapter. You're waiting for the perfect ending of that book. And then there's the other thing that I was going to say is about a lot of times they said in the olden days, I want to say, but back when shamans weren't allowed to be shamans if they were women until they were done bleeding, because that's when they had the wisdom. And that makes so much sense. So I feel like I'm so excited to be in my, post-menopause and not bleeding anymore. And I just feel like I am having the best life ever. I mean, I am definitely living my best life. And it's a little scary because I'm thinking, well, I'm 52 and I'm living my best life. And I think it's just going to get better.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Okay. So we could talk all day, and I'm teasing Chris in the private chat. Tell him, nope, we're not going to be done in 4 minutes. We're going to keep going. No, we're not though. All right. So tell people more about how to get a hold of you. What are you doing and where are you going and how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I the big thing here in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, is I run a wellness center. You can find me at harmoniceggcanada.com. We were the first in Canada. Like Gail said, there's, I think, over 40 locations in Canada, whether they've been installed already or they're on the way. And then as a composer, if anyone has interest, I just have a website, paigecora.com, and that has all of my kind of pop music. Some of the scoring that I've done for documentaries are on there. And then actually, if you go to harmonicegg.com, there's a USB called Soul Concerto. That was a double song album that I created in collaboration with Gail and Harmonic Egg that is now used in the eggs across the world, which still blows my mind. I just to go from music industry and all of that world to creating conscious music, medicinal music, and having it affect people on this totally different distribution channel is just so incredibly humbling. So I'm so honored.
Yeah. And Paige, oh my gosh, if you guys have an opportunity that you need some piece of music, she's so felt about it, if that's the right word. I mean, she composed this piece of music and she kind of tuned in. Okay, it's going to be during a full moon. I'm going to put equipment in the forest. I'm going to, make sure it's this way and that way. And then, of course, unfortunately, she lost her cat, and she's like, okay, Gail, I can't do it right now because I have to process this grief. I don't want to put that grief into the piece of music. This piece of music is so powerful and so like thoughtful, and Paige is just so brilliant. So just love you so very much. And you know that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for this time for us together. It's been fun. It's gone by very fast. Any final words?
Just remember that God loves you, and anything you wish to create is yours to play on the stage. Thank you, Gail. I love you so much.
I love you. I love you.
This
Love
is
you.
so great.
Yay. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
This show is not intended to diagnose, prevent, or treat any diseases or illnesses. The information presented within cannot substitute the advice of your physician or other trained healthcare professionals. The content of this show is for educational purposes only and is the expressed opinion of the show host and guests.